2006 Volvo S60 with the 2.5 liter turbo engine. The PCV valve is leaking. I'm Brian Essert from How To Automotive. I'm going to show you how to change that out. So we need to start by getting this intercooler pipe off. So go ahead and loosen your hose clamp here. And there's going to be a T25 Torx bolt here and here. Just pull the pipe off, leave it connected back there, and just set it aside like that. Next we need to get these covers off here, here, and here. And they're held on with these Torx bolts, and that's a T27. So go ahead and remove all of those. You can remove this cover. This cover, after you get it off, it has a clip here, and the same type of clip on the back here. Pop that off, remove, and then remove this cover too. So our goal is to get this intake manifold off, because underneath the manifold is the PCV box or breather system. So what we need to do is we need to remove the electrical connectors here and all the injectors and the coolant temp sensor, and we're going to set the wiring harness aside. We need to unscrew this vacuum hose here, take the bolt out for our dipstick. So we need to get this hose clamp off here also. Okay, so next we need to get the throttle body boot off, which is this tube, big tube here that runs along, and under here is a hose clamp. So you'll just take the hose clamp off right there. So now we're ready to start removing the intake manifold bolts itself. So on the bottom bolts, as you can see, get my pointer here. As you can see these bolts here, all you have to do is loosen these bolts. Because on the bottom of the intake, it has like this little horseshoe thing, and they just kind of hook over the top of the bolt. So what we're going to do is loosen the bolts here. Let's see how many of them there are. There's one here. And then the hardest one to get to is the one underneath the thermostat here. Let's see, what you do is you kind of fold the hose out of the way, and you can see it back there. And the way you get to it is with a tool like this. It's a 10mm crow's foot. Like this. So this is going to be your setup. So you fold the hose out of the way, and you can slide this under there, and you can get to it, and all you do is loosen it a couple turns and loosen it up. So that's going to be my setup. As you can see, it goes underneath the thermostat and on there, and then you can just loosen it a few threads. So once you got all the bottom bolts loosened, what you're going to do next is on the top of the fuel rail here, there's a T15 Torx screw. You're going to unscrew that, and I just totally dropped that. Damn it. I'll have to fish that out in a minute. Anyways, on the back side right here, where you can see my finger, there's a little hook, and two hooks, and what you do is you flick that and you pull this out, and that's how you disconnect the fuel line to the fuel rail. So that clip will look like this. So just take it out, set it aside, and when you lift this off, it'll come straight up, and there's just an O-ring that's inside here that holds it in place, and that what we just took out locks it in place. So now what you want to do is remove all the upper bolts completely to hold the intake on. So there looks like there's about 1, 2, about 4 or 5 of those bolts. So we're going to go ahead and remove those. So I was able to lift it straight up like that, but there's going to be another hose here that we're going to have to deal with in a second. And this hose here, it goes through the intake manifold. This one's been replaced before, so it has a hose clamp. Yours most likely is going to have a type of clamp that you're actually going to have to cut off. It's very similar to this clamp here, but it won't be. It's not a detachable one. You're going to have to cut it off, and most likely you're going to replace this hose when you do this. This one's actually in pretty good shape. So remove this hose. Okay, now that you got this hose lifted up, what you can do is you can lift the intake up as pretty high as you can. And I'm going to look underneath the intake here, and you can see that bolt and hose that's on here. I'll put my hand on it for you. It's right down here. So you can, it doesn't want to focus in on it, but there it is. So you can remove that bolt, and there's going to be washers on both sides of that flange. You have to be careful not to drop those. So loosen that bolt up and take that line off, and then the whole intake will come off. And there is going to be coolant in that hose, so you want to put a bucket underneath to catch the coolant that drips out. So this is the hose that was underneath that we were looking at from behind, and this is the bolt with the 2 washers. So if you spread the washers, but anyways, it's called a banjo bolt. And so I took that out. It's a 17mm head on it. Took that out, and then the whole intake came off. I left this whole box right here, this black plastic box, and you're going to change the hoses that are attached to it too. So you're going to replace this hose here, the box itself. It's going to held onto a 10mm bolt here, and then also it's kind of hard to see, but there's a 10mm bolt on the inside right here, and you'll use an extension and go through to get to it. And the best way to do it is look at the new part and kind of look where the bolt is, and then you can get it off. So I don't have the new parts here yet. I'll show you. And then you're just gonna remove any hoses that are attached to it, and you're gonna just pull the box off, and there's gonna be some O-rings and stuff. So you can see my setup here to get to that bolt that I was telling you was difficult to get to. So you can also see we're really close to the alternator. So I went ahead and disconnected the negative battery cable. That way I don't accidentally arc out on the alternator here. And also we have a fuel line off, so then that's potential for a major problem. So go ahead and disconnect your battery. So now I got it off, and as you can see, there's only 2 bolts. But that one bolt is underneath there, and it's kind of hard to get to. But once you get it out, and all I used was just a 10mm, deep 10mm socket with like a little 1-inch extension here and a 1/4-inch ratchet, and that's all it really took to get it out. So this is the whole PCV system. This is what you're going to replace. You're going to replace the box. You're going to replace this hose here, and there's going to come off a grommet here, and you're going to replace all that. And then you're going to inspect these hoses and stuff like that. And if they're in bad shape in any way, shape, or form, now is the time to go ahead and replace that stuff. And now that we got our new PCV system here, I recommend you're most likely going to need to replace all the hoses. This job was done not too long ago, but it was leaking oil, so the reason why we're redoing this job. So I'm just going to go ahead and transfer my hoses. They're in good shape back over. And this seal was the one with the culprit of leaking. So you're going to start by removing the seal here, pull it off, and then you'll put the new seal on, and then you'll bolt the new PCV oil separator on. So what I did was I started this hose, I slipped this one on first, and then after that was on, then I lined up down at the bottom, the rubber grommet on the bottom, and pushed it in from the bottom of my hand. Now I'm going to start the bolt here, and I'm just going to start them, and I want a little bit of play. And then what I'll do is I'll take my socket, and I'll show you. So I took my socket and put a piece of paper in it, and then stuck the bolt in there, and that holds it in place. So now I can slide this in between the hard one to get, and I can start it. And then go ahead and tighten that bolt down first, and then tighten up the upper one. Okay, after getting the breather box mounted back on the oil separator, what we need to do is just go ahead and take the rest of the bolts out of your intake here, and change out your gasket, and then slip the gasket on and then start the 3 bottom bolts again. And you're gonna make sure all these hoses are tight, all of them, and then what we're going to do is we're going to kind of put the intake back in there, and then we're going to start this hose and bolt with the bend. We're going to use new crush washers or brass washers, and start these and tighten this down onto the port that goes here on the intake. And then once that's tightened, then what we'll do is we'll slip these little ears over the bolts here. And at the same time, this fuel line, it's got a stab inside the rubber O-rings that are inside here. So you kind of gotta do like 3 things at one time, and kind of hook it in there. And then once it's hooked in there and that's in there, I like to go ahead and put the bracket on and re-secure the fuel line, and then tilt it up and then start the top bolts for the manifold. One of the things that may help you when you go to start this bolt is to take the upper hose and pull it over to the side and put a zip tie it to the power steering hose here, and that kind of holds it out of your way so you don't have to mess with it. So going to start this bolt, it's going to be a little bit of a, you're going to work, so you're going to put the intake and you're going to work from back and try to start the bolt like this. And, it's going to be a little bit of a chore to get it, but you can do it. And if you're really struggling with it, you can remove the hose clamp here and pull the hose off, and that gives you a little bit more play to start the bolt and then tighten it down. So to get this banjo bolt started here, I had to remove this hose clamp here and pop the hose off. So once you got that, now what you want to do is you're going to line your intake up and your fuel line at the same time here, and then hook it over your studs. Also, don't forget to route this through the intake, and then there's another hose, the vacuum hose here. You'll have to, you can get to it from the side and kind of fish it back through to hook it up here. So go ahead and hook your hose back up and tighten the clamp up, and then you can put your top bolts on and torque those down, and then torque the bottom bolts down. I'll give you the exact torque specs on this, but because of the way the angles are, and you'll probably have to use wobble sockets or whatever, you're not going to get a super accurate torque anyway. So I just start in the middle and tighten the middle bolt and work your way out like that, and then tighten on your last one. It's just the intake gaskets, and there's no coolant or anything going through it, so not super high technical for the torquing. Just tighten them as best you can. And after that, so far the hardest part of the job is starting this banjo clamp and tightening that down. And also I wanted to make sure you don't over tighten it, because they're hollow, so that the bolt kind of, I have snapped one off before. So tighten that down until the crush washer's crushed. Start the bolt, torque your intake down, and then fish through here. You can fish the vacuum line. You can see it down here. You can just kind of maneuver through here and fish it through, and then start that. And then before we get too carried away, you want to take your clip that holds the fuel line in. So after getting your, snap it in place, put your little Allen screw back in. So after getting the vacuum routed up through here, hose back on and tighten down, and now you can go ahead and plug in all your injectors. They just push on all your electric connectors, and like so. Plug it in here with the fuel pressure sensor. Plug your coolant temp sensor in. Now what you want to do is underneath, you want to reach your left. It's probably easiest with your left hand if you're coming like this, and pull the boot up onto the throttle body, and then tighten the hose clamp on that. So now that you got the boot underneath here on your throttle body and tighten, go ahead and start your dipstick and tighten that up. So now you can go ahead and put your vacuum line back on. And after you get that done, in my case, the oil filter cap was leaking oil. You can actually just replace the seal in here. So we got one coming. So I got to clean up all this mess that's spilled on the top of the valve cover here. But your next step, if yours is dry, whatever, and you can get oil from two places: one from this hose breaking, or the cap itself leaking oil onto the valve cover. So I'm gonna clean that all up, and then after that, you can go ahead and put the top covers back on, and put all your torque screws back in, and button that up. And then after that, you can flip your air snorkel on, or for your intercooler hose back on, and put the clamp on it and tighten that up. So now that you got your intercooler tube back on and the clamps back, the bolts back in, if you tied your hose over like I did, go ahead and cut that off now and put it back to stock. And then, so the only thing left we need to do is top off the coolant. You probably lost a little bit when you if you pulled the hose off like I did. I lost a little bit, but not a whole lot. And then after that, you want to just take it somewhere where you can get it good and clean, because when that breaks, it makes a pretty good mess. And so now you need to just clean the under shields and all that stuff. And that's pretty much how you replace the PCV valve on a 2006 Volvo S60 with the 2.5 turbo. I'm Brian Essek from How To Automotive, and I'd like to thank you again for watching my videos.